If you had a time machine and you could go to any place in history, where's the first place you would go?
Yeah. I would go back to the Garden of Gethsemane.
The Garden of Gethsemane.
It's the public park where Jesus was arrested.
You are obsessed with this.
Yeah, I think
you constantly talk about this moment when Jesus was arrested.
Yeah. It's why is that?
Is this in the Bible?
Yes, it is.
Also, dumb question. How many versions of the modern Bible are there?
I don't know how many, but I can think of at least 12.
And what's the difference between them all? Why are there so many versions?
It depends on the time that they're translated. And if you'll notice, a lot of them will follow the earlier authors. Right? Bible scholars don't read anything outside of the Bible. So how good do you think their vocab is? How good do you think their translation skills are? Mm-hmm. Right, that's the problem. So those translations are generally pretty bad, and that's what I brought some examples of. Okay. And this is in the garden, actually, that I brought these slides for. Okay. And this is the Garden of Gethsemane. And where are we? We're with Jesus in the first. And he's being arrested.
Okay, so let's give some context. Yeah. Let's give some context to this. So who was Jesus, and why, and what is so good? What is so great about him?
Yeah, Jesus is a guy who walked around with 12 children, and
all the time,
and prophets, and a group of prophets. No, I'm just telling you what the text says.
He was just a guy who walked around with prophets.
And children.
So what was so great about him?
He called his disciples, and he calls them his children constantly, right? Remember, God.
So he's a pimp.
God blesses those who take care of the children, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
He takes care of these children.
He takes care of these children.
Okay.
There is a female underage called the Pidiska. When Jesus Christ is in his trial, his followers won't admit they're his followers, right? It's the whole, you're going to deny me, right? Jesus is all like, I'm going to get friggin' scandalized, right? And you're going to deny me. When he's in the garden and he gets caught, and those three, Peter, James, and John, they're keeping watch, the text says. They're guarding at a distance, while Jesus takes boy that's been assigned to him. That's what the text says. Like a slave.
So the depiction of this event is only in one version of the Bible. Is that right? Is it Matthew?
No, it's in multiple, but the kid is only in Mark.
Only in Mark.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's only like 2 sentences, right? Stephen, can you pull up the passage?
I've got it here.
Oh, you've got it there. Okay.
Yeah. 1451. Is that first slide?
I can pull up the passages and show the different versions.
Yeah, let's do that.
And how it translates as well. What passage is it?
Mark 1451.
1451. All right, cool.
Okay, a young man. What is it? Can you blow it up?
Yeah.
A young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus when they seized him. That's all it says.
Yeah. Now look at the Greek.
Oh, yeah.
And it says, a young boy was assigned to him, having wrapped his penis with a medicated bandage, and they arrested him.
A medicated bandage is what it says.
Sindon, yeah. I've got the...
Okay, so I'm comparing yours to what this one says. So visibility, I can turn on Greek as well. Okay. I would love to see how this online Bible matches yours.
Check out the...
Okay, so right here, is that exactly what you're reading?
Yeah, that's what I'm reading.
Okay, which one of those Greek words is wrapped in a medicated linen?
Epigumno. This is on the... Okay, let's just start on the first line.
Maybe should we go to his computer, Steve?
Yeah, I'm punching it up.
That's it.
Okay.
Let's go to the first one. The second word in is neoniskos, and that is what we call a diminutive.
Neoniskos.
So it's a little of something else. And what is a neonias? A neonias is a boy.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a little boy.
Okay.
And they called Pidiska female prostitutes who were underage.
Okay.
And when I say underage, I don't mean
Did they define underage
18.
down back then?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not under 18. It's before.
So, okay.
Right.
So that was their word for before.
Age was. They didn't set a year.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Right.
The translation here says young.
And was there was there any sort of moral boundaries when it came to sex or prostitution based on pre?
Not from what I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, generally, in
Nothing.
different civilizations, you can still, like in Athens, you can still prosecute for somebody coercing what you and I would say is underage, them before puberty. Yeah, that's still, you can get in trouble for that.
Okay.
But it's not like it's not like there's compensation involved because, it's not like a crime like you and I consider a crime. It's more like a civil crime. Yeah.
Okay.
Or like being punched.
Right.
Yeah, you've damaged somebody so you can give them reparations for damaging them.
Okay.
That's what you do. But the pedagogy in antiquity, pedagogue, that person who raises, educates the children, right? That person, that's the kentauron, they called them. The centaur. It's their word for past.
Which means what?
Oh, with children.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and Chiron, remember Chiron, he's a centaur who is the master of Heracles. And now you know why Heracles has his boy Hylas. Do you understand? The sacred mysteries pass from generation to generation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, again, what was so special about Jesus? He was a guy who walked around with kids.
Yeah. Apostles. Yeah. So, what was so special about him?
Was he the only one doing that?
What was so special about it? Like, and that's perfect. No, he's not. It's called being a leistes.
What is a leistes?
He was crucified between two of these. A leistes is defined, and I've got it on the next. Let's see. Oh, here, look. This follows my presentation. So this is what the boy that was with Jesus. Boy, this is what he was with him, doing. He's following him. Notice they use this term sunakuletho.
And
right?
Where do you get this from? This image?
Thank you to the Victorians from Oxford, who have given us this wonderful, fantastic lexicon of ancient Greek.
Okay.
1850s.
Okay.
After that book that you just had was.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Was written.
Okay.
And here it is. And notice that it's using soldiers. It's using term for soldiers and slaves, right? So this kid is not just hanging out with Jesus, right? People have tried to explain this for a while. What was the kid doing with Jesus, right? Okay. Anyway, let's go on to the next one.
Double click. There you go. Now hit the green button.
Blow it up. Look, this is what the kid is wrapped on his gumnos. And you say, what's gumnos? Gumnos
fine cloth, usually linen.
Yeah. Fine cloth. Look where look at the second line. It says busines telemones, right? Uh-huh. So they're wrapping things in this
used
fine
for mummies.
Cloth, right?
And surgeon's bandages.
Mm-hmm. And bandages, and that's where I get it. On my end, when I'm reading the medical authors, they're all saying that you impregnate linen with drugs that you're going to treat the wound with, right? This kind of makes sense.
You impregnate women.
No, linen, I'm sorry.
You impregnate linen.
Yeah. Don't impregnate the women.
With drugs.
Yeah.
To treat wounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't that make sense?
This is the original text, and this right here is the translation that we have right now, which is, I'll punch it up for people, nothing but a linen garment.
Yeah. Notice how they took it from a bandage and turned it into.
Who did this? Who's responsible for this?
Crappy translators. People who do not work with the Greek. If you bring up the next one.
But is this an accident or is this intentional?
No,
these translations.
Intentional stupidity.
Are they intentionally leaving this shit out of the Bible? Because
no, it's bad training.
Oh. Okay.
It's just bad training.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go. Now watch this one. Okay, so that last one had businos on it. Well, what is the businos? It's fine linen bandage, right? They give you at the top. But then look at the reference on the second line. That's Euripides Bacchae. Okay, so this is something that they're using within some kind of religious ritual. And look at number 2 at the bottom. Roman numeral number 2, porphyrus. That's Hesychius. And who's Hesychius? Hesychius is a lexicographer from the 4th and 5th who comes in, and he has access to these ancient Greek lexicography texts, right? So before anybody was having any kind of substantial literature, the Greeks were already at the level, and these are ancient Greeks, they're already at the level of creating a language that is so highly specialized, we're still trying to translate it.
These translations that you've just pulled up, what does this have to do with, or what does this tell you about the scene of Jesus in the park?
That's exactly what this verse says right here. It says...
Can you zoom in on that a little bit?
Yeah, can we...
There you go. There you go. You just did it.
Yeah, and so he's... what happened? So Jesus is there, and it says the kid dropped the bandage and ran off naked. That's exactly what that says. The kid dropped the bandage and ran off naked.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it says specifically in 51 that it was epigumnos, and epigumnos is on his private parts.
An epigumno, which is the bandage that's soaked in drugs.
The sindon that's on there, right? And why? Why is Jesus with the kid? Remember when he first walks in the garden, he falls over, he stumbles over, and he's in pain. He's going through the exact same symptoms that doctors will describe.
Jesus is?
Of the drug users. Yeah, it's in this chapter. It's in Mark 14. Yeah.
So he's tripping.
It says that he's exceptionally fearful, right? So it looks like he's in some kind of psychotic fear, and he's screaming about, "Take it, don't let me do it." And he's with his kid. He's with this kid at the time, right? And he ends up with stuff on his face, stuff that is like big drops of porphyron.
I'm talking about bodily fluids.
Blood is how it's typically, no, that's how it's translated. It's not the blood that he's got, it's purple. And he's got an antidote from the kid's sin. That's the galene, is the kid's sin. Heracles has to have Hylas. He has to have his boy. Zeus has to have Ganymede. On the Priapeic side, they call it Ganymede's. And the question is, do you drink from Ganymede's?
I don't.
Well, that's why you're not in charge.
Yeah, probably. All right, bring me back down to earth here. What's going on in the park again? So Jesus has the purple on his face.
Yeah. He's got the purple on his face.
So Jesus is having some sort of a psychotic fit, right?
He's having some kind of overwhelming emotional state that's hitting him so hard, he's falling on the ground. So he's got something on board that's causing him to stumble.
And it's 4 a.m. in the morning?
It's 4 a.m. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's got who
he just came from the
who wrote this, by the way?
Party with the kids. He just came from
Did
the
one
party.
of the cops write this? One of the cops that arrested him?
No, this is Mark. Yeah.
Mark was there.
Well, no, Mark is telling you the secret things that you're not supposed to know.
So how does Mark know if he wasn't there?
Yeah, well, I don't care if he does or doesn't know. The fact is he's saying them.
Okay.
And that's what's scary.
Well, how do we know Mark didn't have an axe to grind against Jesus? You want to make Jesus look like a bad guy and make him look like a weirdo or a crazy person.
He could, maybe. I don't know, for all I know.
Right.
That's why I say we have to stick with exactly what the sources say.
The point is that this is take it for what it's worth. This is what Mark said.
Yeah, and
Mark was not there.
No, it's Peter, James, and John, and the kid.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, Mark, where did Jesus come from before this? In the scene, he came from the place where he was with all the kids in the upper room. That's where they came from, right?
In what room?
In the upper room. It's just the way to refer to the place. Look, it was shady, right? This is part of the cops. This is part of what the cops have on him, right? He sent out a couple of his boys to go scout out a place. And when he did, he told them, hey, you're going to come to this guy. And he's standing there, and he's doing this. And you got to approach him and say, Jesus' boys, where do we need a place for Jesus to celebrate? And he says, take him in here. And he finds a guy, and they take him up. And they get a shady backroom business. Remember, what does Jesus do with his boys? We all know this. That's why we're a crowd, and we're angry, and we want Jesus crucified. Now you understand why there was a friggin' crowd there. Yeah. A little bit brutal with him, weren't they? Well, yeah, they had good reason to be. He was with those 12 underage kids in that room washing feet. And you got to get naked when you wash feet. Have you ever washed somebody's feet naked?
Not that I can recall.
How about a 12-year-old boy?
No, absolutely not.
Now, why wouldn't you? Do you have some kind of problem with Jesus?
Apparently I do.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's too bad, because he ends up in the garden after this with the 3 older ones, and he says, keep guard while he takes the young kid off to the middle of the garden. In the meantime, they're falling asleep while Jesus is rolling around in agony and doing what he's got to do to get for the Galene from the boy. And that's the mastery here. The boy has some kind of antidote. Galen describes yeah, it's not milky.
Galen describes this.
Yeah, as long with the girls exudate from their breast. You can milk. You didn't know you could?
I did not know that.
Okay, well, you can, medically. Probably has antibodies in it to whatever the venoms they're using. Because these same girls, you cut them.
And this stuff?
You cut them and you wrap them with the snake venom. And that's why we all hold up the serpent. Right? We all know it. You see my tattoo, right? It doesn't
Which tattoo?
It doesn't say it was on a pole.
Show me the tattoo you're talking about.
It says it was on a tattoo. I'm just any of them. Just any of them. I'm waxing poetic. I'm sorry.
Okay, so Galen talks about this that boys and girls create, and he talks about this being used as an antidote to snake venom specifically.
It's the Galene. It's a Greek term that means the calm after the storm. Galene.
And so who was Jesus Christ?
Yeah, Christ is a title.
Christ is a title.
Yeah. Christ is a title, yeah, and it's a pharmaceutical term.
Christ is a pharmaceutical term.
Where you put,
in Greek.
Yeah, yes, and it means, I have several examples of it to show you, but it means you can perform an incrustation, they called it, where I give you a drug. What you'll see me do is I'll spit on the ground. Yeah, I'll spit on the ground, and I'll use a combination of earth and spittle. My own spittle. Why am I spitting? Did you know Jesus walked up and spit in people's faces? What is your religion?
I'm not really religious.
Yeah, I didn't think so. It's a bunch of crap, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Not according to you.
No.
According to you, it's way more than I thought it was. So why in the Bible do they explain that the guys who were being crucified next to Jesus were just thieves?
Yeah, that's how they translate it. That's how they translate it.
And again, this is not on purpose. They just accidentally did this.
How are you going to translate it?
But isn't it convenient that isn't it convenient for them that they left all this out?
Oh, you are right on top of it, detective. No, seriously, write your dissertation now. Why would you choose between a kid having a linen garment and a bandage on his parts? And why would you choose to present Jesus in a way that's not accurate to the sources? I'm not saying to anybody's interpretation. There's no room for interpretation here. It's just, what are the sources saying? He's a lestes,
which is a pimp,
which is basically a trafficker. Yeah.
Which was looked down upon, which was frowned upon back then.
Because it's an active, organized crime.
But a civil crime.
You've got boys of Galilee, and those boys of Galilee, they're entrenched in the.
But didn't you say that when the people approached Jesus in the park, you called them cops? They were like ancient
Roman
cops. Did they have chest cams?
No, but they had big weapons. He notes it, and I have that.
And he said, and according to Matthew, the first thing he said is, "I am not a laestace or a."
Right. He said, I'm not a laestace, man. He says, why did you come out here? Why did you come out here with all your heavy weapons like I'm a laestace?
Right.
Right? Right? So...
well, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just trying to get the antidote.
Well, it could be, but he's making a big deal about it, right?
Right.
For some reason. Mm-hmm. And he's standing there contextually right next to a kid. So, maybe he's trying to give an answer for why there's a kid with him in a public park for him.
If I'm his lawyer, that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. No. More importantly, what's that kid actually doing? And I think that's the question.
What do you think?
The evidence only shows that he could be one of these boy dudes who's providing the people who are in the cult with the galene, with the thing that's going to balance whatever it is that Jesus has taken that's put him into a state. And it doesn't work, and he ends up dying on the cross. And if you notice in the resurrection, we just had Easter. Did anybody notice it's another boy?
We just had an Easter and we just had an eclipse.
Yeah, another boy with Jesus in the tomb. Don't you remember?
No.
Yes.
I never read the Bible.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't? That's right. Oh, we got to start reading the Bible more.
Should I read it?
Yeah, I think you should.
Which version should I read?
The Greek version. Yeah. Yeah. Come to my class. I'll have you. 20 weeks. I'll have you with just enough to be dangerous.
These texts that you're reading and that you're translating, are these the original sources of religion, of Christianity and Catholicism and baptism and all this stuff? Is this like the originals?
Yeah, this is the language that held that all of those texts. So the New Testament's all written in ancient Greek, right? What you call the Old Testament, and I'm going to shock people with this one. What you call the Old Testament, which people say is written in Hebrew, right, which is not a language that I work with. I had to take a little bit of modern Hebrew when I was there, just because it was part of the, education. And, but the text that you think is written in Hebrew is not. It's a Greek text that's written in the 3rd century. It's a Hellenistic text called... that you call the Torah or the Old Testament, that is not an original Hebrew text. Now, how can I say that? What we have is the Septuagint that I'm talking about. It's the Greek Old Testament. Do you understand Greek Old Testament? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's the oldest form that we've got.
Okay.
Okay. The whole big deal about the Dead Sea Scrolls was they said, we finally have some Hebrew, because none of it survives, right? Hebrew is only an 8,000 word, ancient Hebrew, 8,000 word, unique word count language.
Okay.
Which puts it in the realm of something you could expend by the end of your breakfast. 8,000 words. That's not a lot.
Okay. And the Dead Sea Scrolls were all in Hebrew?
The Dead Sea Scrolls were fragments in Hebrew and fragments in Greek, and everybody assumed, this is the original in Hebrew, right? Because now we're following church history. You and I live in a time in the time stream. We live at a time when we think that there was an original Hebrew text of the Old Testament, but there wasn't. It doesn't exist, right? And to show people the Greek, what's the proof? What's the proof? The proof is when you read the Septuagint, that is the Greek Old Testament. Mm-hmm. It does not read as a translation. It reads as an original. It uses Greek idiom. It's like a fingerprint on the language, and it's got Greek.
How can you tell it reads
Greek fingerprints?
How do you discern the difference, whether it be an original or a translation?
Oh, you can tell. It's easy to tell because colloquialisms don't translate, right? And so it's like tagging it. So you're testing this language to see what its age is.
Okay.
So you tag it with certain things, and one of them is colloquialisms, right? The other one is technical vocabulary. You cannot translate from a higher technical degree to you can't translate from a median technical degree to a high technical degree.
Okay.
You can go down the slope. You can take something that's not technical, right? And make it more technical, right? You can force that. But you can't drift upstream.
Right.
So if the original is going to have the highest degree of technicality.
Yes. So the Dead Sea Scrolls were not the highest degree of technical writing. They were lower. They were lower than the Greek. What was the word? The book you're talking about?
They're Hebrew back translations because at the time, the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're Hebrew back translations. So they took the Greek.
Of what specifically?
They took the Greek and they said, how do we translate this into Greek?
Okay.
That's why you lose all the technical terms because they didn't have them in their language.
How big of a gap is there between the original texts and the Bible people read today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these are the texts that are ultimately assembled into what you call the Bible.
Right.
Those are the same thing, right? This is the
so there's only some pieces, like there's a huge load of ancient Greek texts, and only certain pieces are cherry picked for the Bible.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. What's the common thread that's uniting all of these things together? It's the cults, man, and the operation of the cults. They're driving the literature at the time. Yeah, they've got a hostage and they're bringing it in. And you can get that from the read. All you got to do is bring up those cults and their activities. The stuff the early Christians were doing, they're collecting blood. And this is from their own insiders who are telling us this. Eustathius tells us this. And he says, oh my God, he says, look what they're doing in these ceremonies. And he goes on to describe it, and I've described it in detail. But they collect the blood.
Who is this guy?
Fetal blood.
Who's Erechthonius?
Oh, this king of this serpent king.
Can you pull up a description of him, Steve? I need Wikipedia's description to give me the truth, so I know how to keep Ammon in check.
Erechthonius in Greek mythology, King Erechthonius was a legendary early ruler of ancient Athens. According to some myths, he was born of the soul.
Autochthonous. Yeah. Exactly. And what happens is Hephaestus comes along and he's like, wow, look at the beauty of what we've made.
He was adopted and raised by Athena.
With this virgin Athena. Her name is Athana.
Okay.
In Dorian.
So how did we get, so explain to people listening how we got to Erechthonius from Solon creating democracy.
It's that line. It's the drug-using mystery that drives everything. Cicero says his life was begun again. He was reborn. What happened?